Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Lisa. If you call roll, please.
Ian Dyson.
Present.
Glenn Newsom. Here. Bill Maker.
Here.
Mike Gunner.
Present.
Jerry Hayes.
Here.
Eric Rogers.
Here.
Timothy Waters.
Present. At this time, I'll open it up for the public hearing. PZ 23-11-02 rezone application. For any public comments regarding the app.
And we should have a motion to open and then we'll have a motion to close.
Okay, so that's not under business then?
No,
Okay,
because it's a formal public hearing, we just have to record when it was opened and closed.
all right, so would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion, we open up the public hearing on PZ 23-11-02, the rezone application at 7:01 p.m.
Support. Moved and supported. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, go ahead, Lisa.
Eric.
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Gwen. Yes. Mike.
Yes.
Jerry.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
James.
Yes. Hearing is open.
Wow.
Okay, so I spoke at
If you don't mind, just your name and address for the record.
right, reminders, 7101 Berkey Highway.
Could you say your name once again, please?
For reminders,
You want to spell that for me?
yeah, TORRI. Do the last name too? MYNDERSE.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I came to the planning commission meeting last week. And I kind of talked about a couple concerns where, the plans didn't meet public use park zoning ordinances. And Danielle brought up a good point where this is kind of like uncharted territory as far as it's gonna be a private park. So, my property borders the lot line, okay? So, what I'm coming to you and hoping that you guys will start planning ahead and thinking about is that we could adopt the public park zoning ordinances for this private park. So the big ones I'm talking about are the field will have to be 100 feet from the lot lines. Lighting is shielded, just those are the big ones. We're also pretty close to Farber, and if you've seen Farber, they've got the big hill built in. They've obviously got that 100 feet maybe plus to the lot lines, and they've got trees around it. So it's obviously super intentionally planned, and we can sometimes hear a little bit, but it's not bothersome, and they've got even like a privacy fence. So just, I guess, I know this is just the rezoning meeting, but I think this kind of goes a lot right along with it as you're planning the proposal, just to consider. I'd really appreciate those same measurements, being taken so that we don't be bothered by, just huge crowd just looking at us in our backyard, and especially the noise of the big one with the hill and the trees. Yeah, that's all. I just wanted you to kind of think about that as we're going forward with the proposal, just as far as planning wise. Thank you. Yeah.
Any questions for Tori or Ms. Mind?
Yeah,
Minders before she. No.
Danielle, can you elaborate just a little bit about what Tori was talking about regarding the public park?
Yes. So she was looking at the public land use district within our ordinances. So this application is coming at kind of a weird time, which I was gonna talk a little bit under new business, but I can talk about it now. So they are requesting a rezone. Obviously, it's zoned industrial right now. The new master plan was just approved by the planning commission and will be coming to you guys in January. And that new master plan, months ago, the planning commission with McKenna had identified that this property be rezoned to something that would be more in line with the pool and farmer field in that area, because what we didn't want to see was an industrial use go into right next to the pool and kind of the area. The Parks and Rec Board has talked about doing some things between Farber and the pool. And we didn't want it to conflict with that or to cause issues. So it does align with the master plan. Now, the other side of that is, you guys know our ordinances need some work, and there's not, right now, our ordinances permit only public parks. They don't permit anything private. And the applicants know this, so this is kind of step one. We're gonna work with them to go through a couple steps. So they're wanting to move forward with the rezone so that they can purchase the property, and Josh is here, so if you have specific questions, I'm gonna defer to him, but so they can purchase the property and move forward. What will follow is an ordinance amendment to allow the private parks and a lot of other amendments tied to the master plan, but it's all kind of related. So in a perfect world, we would have the master plan adopted and some of these steps already in place. But because of, again, just the timing of it all, so we're trying to work through those things. So what Tori's asking is that when that comes before as a zoning amendment, we have the ability to say, for example, that this use is allowed with conditions. So what the public land use says is that it's allowed with the condition that lighting be screened from residential property, that there be some kind of barrier. So that's, I think, right, what she's hoping that that'll be incorporated moving forward, so that it's not just for the village public parks, but it's also for the private.
It's just kind of uncharted territory, it's just me, I just want, I think it goes hand in hand with like this proposal submitted kind of as you're planning, so I just thought like it's important to bring up now, so we can kind of all, I don't know, hopefully get on the same page, because then we won't have a problem, you know, I just so that it's kind of mutually acceptable.
Yeah, and what I shared with, really their whole family was at planning commission, so.
I think you guys a favor.
But what I had shared with Tori and her husband at the planning commission too, is that through all of these steps, there's a public hearing, there's public involvement. So I will actually, I'm planning on sending her the ordinances. I'll keep her in the loop the entire full time. Like, we want her and anybody else to be involved and provide feedback so that whatever we're doing, it makes sense for the whole community. And we're not just catering to one item or one thing. We want it to kind of make sense.
Thank you.
Yes. And then before you guys do close public hearing, we do want to just share a couple things on the staff side, just as a notation.
So we did receive one letter in opposition to the rezone that was presented to the planning commission as well as being the packet. There were 7 members of the public that spoke in favor at planning commission. And then we had 1 that was opposed, and we received a email this morning from Scott that is not attached to your packet, but it should be on top. I handed them out before the meeting, just stating that he would be unable to attend, but there's some words from him.
And Scott and Josh are the applicants together, so again, we would defer any questions to Josh.
All right, any other public comments on during the public hearing?
Just about the zoning,
Pardon me?
just about the zoning?
Yes.
There's a separate public comment. Yes.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to close this special hearing, public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing on PZ 23-11-2 rezone application at 7:09 p.m.
Support. Okay, we have time for additional discussion, so Lisa, go ahead.
Mike,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
James,
Yes. Thank you. Would someone like to approve or make a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda of December 18th, 2023.
Support.
Any input or amendments to that? No, Lisa, go ahead.
Tim,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
James,
Yes, thank you. I will now open it up for public comment. This is items on the agenda, items not on the agenda, is that correct?
Yes, any items.
Any items, if you so wish.
Hi,
You want to state your name and address?
my name is Astrid Kutulski. My address is 650 West Adrian, lot 165. I'm here because my water bill is outrageous. It's $200. I live by myself in a trailer. In the summertime, I watered my flowers in the morning and at night. I can understand then, but I'm one person in a trailer. I can't understand why it's $200 a month. Last month it was 195, no, 172, and this month it's 204. I don't know what to do. I don't have any leaks. I called the city and they said to put some food color in the back of my tank, and if it came into the bowl part, then I was a leak, and I did both. I have 2 bathrooms. One, the water doesn't even work in there to the sink. But there's no leaks that I know of, and I don't understand why it's so much. And that's all. I love this city. I just moved here 2 years ago, but the water is just killing me. I'm unemployed. I live on my husband's dead process support. And I don't know what to do, so.
Have you spoken to Mr. Rupp? You said you live in a trailer park?
Yeah.
Have you spoken to Mr. Rupp?
No.
To have a look, maybe he could come out and see if he could find a leak for you. So that does seem awfully high for one individual.
Right, I take a quick shower. I don't leave water running, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just stupid. So I will talk to him. Thank you for that.
Okay,
That's it.
okay.
Thanks.
Does it say what your water usage is?
It says it says 7,400 for sewer and 7,400 for water.
It's a lot.
I don't even know what that means.
That's
Yeah.
gallons.
Yeah, it's 7,400 gallons.
That's a lot. And the sewer, why is the sewer at that rate? 7,400 gallons of sewage because I use that much water?
Right, correct.
Well, there has to be a leak. But I don't know. But I redid the whole trailer. I remodeled the whole thing and everything's fine. When I moved in there, the toilet was sinking into the floor in the bathroom. So I had that all redone, new toilet, new floor, new subfloor,
Yeah.
all the pipes. So
And I'm assuming you have not been in to talk with, Danielle.
I called on the phone.
Yeah, I believe you spoke with Brandon, correct? I don't know the extent of that conversation.
I've called twice.
I
now.
can follow up with Brandon to see if there's any additional information. But I believe, I think talking to Mr. Rupp and seeing if there's a leak somewhere is a good first step. Definitely follow up with, you can call myself or Brandon again, either one.
I'll do
And
that.
then if we need to take further action or have DPW test the meter or something. we can
That's
take
what I
that
was thinking. Maybe the
steps.
meter needs to be checked because the trailer was crap when I bought it.
The other thing is, Danielle, what is the name of the assistance program?
Community Action Agency.
Okay,
They received federal funding, so they don't have this as strict of income requirements as like Department via DHS. But you could give them a call there. Again, if you call the office, I can give you the number. I don't have it off the top of my head, but even if you just Google CAA Adrian,
okay.
it'll pull the number up and you can talk to probably anybody. We deal with Amy the most, but they do offer assistance.
Okay.
And they receive federal funding, so they want to use it so that they can.
Oh, my
continue
God,
getting
that'd
that
be such a
money.
blessing.
Yes, you need to check into that.
I absolutely will.
That doesn't solve the problem of
No, no,
7,400.
it
It's a large
does
amount
not.
for one person,
Sure.
so there's nothing obviously wrong.
My neighbor, there's 3 people living there and hers is a $40 less than mine. So there's something wrong for
Yeah.
sure.
Start with Mr. Rupp and then let us know. We'll check the meter. If he doesn't find anything, we'll go from there.
Thank you so much. for your
Thank you.
time.
Welcome.
Any other public comment, items on the agenda, items not on the agenda? No, all right. Move on to discussion item number 1 then. Reason this special meeting was called.
Point of order, would we technically, it being a special meeting, have public comment regarding anything else because it is a special meeting dedicated to this?
We're required to have public comment at
At every meeting,
Yeah.
even for a special meeting about something that's not,
so.
and I'm not trying to be disrespectful and all, because I want to hear from the public, but again, it's a special meeting
Yeah,
to meet about this specific
You
topic.
would not be able to take, and like, had she or anybody requested a motion or action, because it's a special meeting, you wouldn't be able to, but they can speak regarding anything.
I called this morning and they said that it would be all right if I said something here. So thank you all.
Thank you.
thank you, happy holidays.
Thanks, same to you. Good night.
All right, well. EZ 23-11-02 rezone application. So just going off of what Ms. Minders was hinting at, it's currently zoned industrial. What, can you give me an idea of the setbacks for that and the light leakage?
Well, there's nothing
light shielding?
specific to light shielding industrial right now.
Is there any like setback or aprons or curtains,
There,
dividers?
yes, there are setbacks, there are separation requirements when adjacent to residential. They have to have a wall, here, I think it's 7 feet, in height. If it's adjacent to residential, here, sorry.
Didn't think of this before it was.
No, you're okay. Yeah, there's nothing for lighting.
The setback and visual barrier and
And then,
access barrier.
So then the public park use ordinance would actually augment at least the lighting impact or lessen whatever way you want.
yeah, they would have to do some kind of, I shouldn't say they have to. I would recommend that we match our existing ordinances, that they have some sort of light shielding. And then we do, in our current ordinances also identify that there should be, in what it says is a 5-foot wall or barrier, and that's to help with some of the noise a little bit. So they could, for example, plant like a row of trees to help kind of protect that and keep it so that they're not negatively impacting those neighbors. And what I would recommend is we follow our existing ordinances.
And
Which
Josh, your
also-
plans are fairly simple at this point. Do you have plans for a dirt mound or a tree row or something to that effect?
Honestly, we need as much space as we can to make it, you know, the most versatile it can be. But obviously it's a clover style, so any buildings or anything will be in the center, away from everything. You know, the only thing on the outside is gonna be outfield fences.
Okay,
So, but we don't plan to put any buildings along the property lines or anything like that. You know, in the future, if we ever do amend anything and expand to put a facility up, you know, that'll be different, but that'll be up by the road. And, you know, that'll have setbacks and stuff, but as of now, you know, we plan to have our outfield fences either, you know, near the property line. I mean, it's to put 4 300-foot fields in, we're stretching it pretty close with having room between the fields to facilitate spectators and dugouts and everything too. But as in constructing any type of building or anything besides a fence and mowed grass, there's, you know, we don't plan on putting anything out there.
okay.
Like, they just like, we're not worried about the buildings. It was like, we're worried about hundreds of fans coming for tournaments and stuff. Like just, you know, it's just, those are big parks. And you just can't find a park that has the outfield come to a lot line. You just can't. look at Heritage, look at Pacesetter, they're all strategically placed around woods. I have pictures if you'd like to see, like, they're all, even Pacesetter, there's even a row of trees between the baseball fields and the soccer field, because it's, and you know, it's awesome, but like, people get really into it. And those tournaments, it's not like people playing, coming, you've got families waiting for their next games, it's just a big event, which is awesome, it's just, you know,
I fortunately or unfortunately, depending how you look at it, I've been to a number of these fields. I've seen them back up to backyards. I've seen them back up to roads, to schools. I've seen mixed use, so
Okay.
they really do encroach right on the property
right,
line.
right to
I've
the
seen-
line.
Yeah, foul balls that are like right on the road, like there's signs up saying this is foul ball territory, not the park on the road, so.
But we use, I mean, yeah, I know, that's what we're worried about, is that we use that land and I don't wanna have to be looking around, you know,
Yeah.
we
What
need,
your land use is agriculture,
no,
what
it's
is-
residential. We just-
residential?
Yeah, we're always, I mean, that's, I homeschool, we're outside all the time. So I just wanna be able to use our property and, you know, I just want us to be able to both use our lots,
Sure.
you know, respectfully.
It looks like your parking's all near Cemetery Road, correct?
Yes,
So
yes, all
that's,
all the vehicles will be out by the road. I kind of sketched it out. You know, we have roughly room for at least 250 cars. And it will all be out, you know, away from any residential.
and right now you have one building in the plan.
Yeah, yeah, and that's all gonna hinge on, the ability to rework the ordinance and, you know, work with everything, but that is, the building part of it is down the road. That is nothing in our immediate plans right now. The fields are the immediate plan,
So anything toward Berkeley is gonna be the outfield.
yes. Yep,
How far away from those lot lines are your proposed fences?
unfortunately.
Going by it.
Right,
drawing here.
unfortunately, until we can get out and mow it and really get some exact measurements, I don't know. I tried to wheel it off and the weeds were this high and it just couldn't work. So,
So the plan that's submitted in front of you guys is not the final site plan.
I understand.
It's just a rough sketch for purposes of the application to give you guys an
Right.
idea. So staff is going to have to continue working with Josh and Scott to make sure that all of the ordinances are met, that we have the site plan and all of that's approved and work through any of those concerns or issues or things that are identified. And if they can't meet them, then they'd have to apply for variance.
Lori, do you mind just coming and looking at something for us?
We just wanna know where you live.
Oh, yeah. Wait, I have some printouts.
We have it on, but we just have it up on the map, this house here.
Okay, so this is. Well, yeah, so this is our whole, this is the line that we share right here,
Okay, so you were where?
right here. And so
Okay.
this is all our land, so we're always playing back and stuff.
Oh,
We don't
okay.
have any trees or anything, so right now the field, I mean, I know they didn't measure exactly, but if you measure this like with Google, you know, using your little finger or whatever, it's pretty close. If you have, you know, 300 field, and then you have like, what, 75 feet in between? It's pretty much line to line. So right now, there's no coverage, especially, you know, into winter, it's just, if you walk out on our deck, it's, you know. So.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody need clarification on that? Thank you. Anybody have any other additional comments or input?
Yeah. So what exactly are we applying for? Mixed use,
Yes.
which. When we created mixed use not that long ago, that was sort of a commercial idea. It was sort of to line the 223 corridor where things would go back and forth between potentially business or residential. And it's specifically in that zone, this would create a hole, right? Something that we technically don't want to do. It's sort of this just one zoned land area, which is bound by everything else, industrial, potential public land, agricultural, right? I mean,
You mean like spot zoning?
yes, spot zone.
So it is not classified as spot zoning because it's identified in the master plan to be rezoned as mixed use to be more in line with what's there. So the pool is actually currently zoned industrial,
It
and
needs to be.
right, it's on my to-do list to rezone that. And I will probably propose, and I've not worked a ton on this, the public land use, because it is owned by the village, it's operated as a park and a public facility. But it's not, it would be considered spot zone, like you're saying, like, the master plan not called it out as changing that zone.
Where does that master
Yeah.
plan show that? Because I haven't seen anything in that master plan that shows it as mixed zone.
So,
I remember talking about making that residential at one point. In the master plan.
the master plan calls it out, it'll be on the last page of the map. And that was a change through the process of the master plan, so McKenna, Laura Hall is working on getting that map revised, and then that'll be
So
sent
the
to you
draft that we
guys.
have doesn't exist. We haven't seen it. We don't.
Correct. Yes, because that was, there was 3 items that were missed by McKenna. And that was one of them, but it is, the planning commission approved the plan with that change.
So we approve this, or we pre-approving that change to the master plan? Essentially,
Yes.
okay.
We literally have nothing, a definition of what is a mixed use district then in that area, correct? I mean, we don't have setback lines, we don't have uses, we don't.
No,
have
we
any
do
sort
have a
of-
mixed use district.
Which is the one that's currently on 223.
No, so the mixed use district, I do think there is some on 223, yes. I can pull the zoning map. So mixed use district is compatible mixes of residential, retail, service, office, administrative. So it is a hybrid. Right now, let me pull the map, because we do have a couple areas currently.
Not anything on the outskirts, literally just the 223 corridor. Or 100 blocks of north and south.
Designed to provide a combination of residential density and retail and office convenience, along with professional services.
So currently, we have some surrounding the downtown area to the south and to the east, a little bit to the west, actually. And then we have we also have some along
So back to
along Main Street,
get it.
High. And Main there, it's the orange.
It'd be like a planning.
So by putting the pool out there, we've already sort of deemed it as no longer industrial at least, right? So that is definitely gonna have to change.
We deem it as public land.
Okay. And then that parking lot in the front on the corner of the Jefferson and, not Jefferson, Gibson and Sugar. That's currently industrial, that's gonna have to automatically change because of setbacks and whatnot.
All industrial.
Yeah, right now the pool's industrial too. It
I
was,
think that it's a central business.
and I don't see that it was rezoned.
Yeah, all of our mixed uses congregated either right downtown or over on the west side.
That's to define again, talk about. It's Pat and Hagen's properties, those went from sometimes retail to residence to apartment and back, or you have these side streets where you have a at-home business, but it's limited to very strict and stringent rules. It doesn't correlate with the quote mixed use district of what we are talking about here. These are two conflating issues. or I guess zones. If anything, I'd rather see it like a public land. I get that it's public land is for everybody, but maybe a special use correlation that goes with the public land. Again, I don't feel that it mixes well with that sort of zoning. And I'm not trying to poo-poo on it at all, regardless. I just want to plan ahead and really have our ducks in a row on this kind of thing. 15 acres, I mean, that's tight. You're talking about a 1 acre building or 0.9 acre building, 200 by 200. Talking about 4 fields. What kind of baseline are you doing? An 80-foot base?
It'll be 90 foot.
90 foot, so that's 4.5 acres per field.
Yep.
So I mean, you're getting very tight, and then you're talking about 200 spaces of parking you need. Recommended, from what I've researched, 20 per field. That's 0.3 acres times 4, that's already 1.2 acres just for very minimal part, the minimum. So now you're talking about, you know, a 4 field process. Are we bringing in buses? Are we bringing in vendors? What else are we kind of bringing in? That seems very tight on space to pull off in 15 acres. As well as having setbacks and concerns with, you know, how we want to dictate
Right.
what the land becomes or how we rezone it.
So, I mean, by the parking lot I got drawn out there, figuring out for the average size of a parking space, it was like 200 and some. I don't know off the top of my head, I did not bring that paper, but yeah, it was over 250 spaces. So, I mean, in 4 fields, if you're gonna talk, you know, even if you had 100 cars per field,
Right.
you know, but that's not gonna happen, because you're not gonna have that many people there at once. But as of now, the building is kind of a futuristic, you know. If the if the fields don't go, the building ain't gonna go. So that was just kind of something we threw in there, so everybody had an idea of what the end game could possibly look like. As of now, if we needed, that could be used as parking area. When it comes to the thought of the mixed use, you know, when we sat down with Danielle, when we started this process, you know, Scott and I said, look, this is what we want to go. But you know how things go. You start something happens. You know, if it's mixed use, in the end, we can turn around and either sell it for somebody to put housing in there, and not have to go through the whole process of having it rezoned again and all of that. Where with the mixed use, it kind of fit our needs. Plus, if all else fails, backfire, it fits the needs that, you know, some people anticipate of just houses. So, that's why we requested the mixed use, was more of the fact of, once it's rezoned, we could do, you know, potentially do our thing. And if it fell through or plans changed, you know, we could sell it or lot it off or whatever we wanted to do, and not have to go through the whole rezoning process, just go through the, you know, the request to change the use of the property and that sort of thing.
But that potentially, if it went back to say residential, whatever, again, that opens up the can of worms for what kind of other quote in-home businesses are operating out of these, or, you know, is it coming, going, what is it? Something like that would be a subdivision if we want residential.
Right.
Down the line, so you would probably rezone it, I think.
Possibly.
So it's the same home occupations as R1 and R2 though. So the home occupations that are permitted in mixed use are current also permitted in residential.
Do we have any background on what the proposed zoning change was going to be in the 2040 plan? Because that was gonna be looked at, from my understanding, it was gonna be looked at to be changed anyways.
Like industrial.
But
That-
if I say it's gotta be fixed, right?
Correct, because
We had talked at one point about making that area, that property residential.
correct, at the last planning commission meeting, the planning commission identified 3 amendments that were needed to be made that were missed. during the amendment process to the master plan, because we've been working on it for 3 years. And that was one of them. So that map is actually revised to show that the master, it's identified that it be rezoned to the mixed use. Or I think residential. But again, mixed use is also residential, so that's where it kind of fit what Josh is saying now, but if that doesn't go through, it fit that residential component as well. Cause it's a hybrid zone.
Right, and but more so for commercial. Which is the whole intent of creating that zone. I hated to create that zone, but that's something we did probably 10 years ago. Because there was coming and going, it wasn't really clear cut on what we would use these houses were. At one time an apartment, or it was a business, and these businesses come and went, and then people moved back in, so we really never had this clear distinction of what was allowed in those areas. You know, kind of like when you talk about Raoul's building, or you talk about the old Inner River Depot, those were all kind of brought into it because the uses came and went. I'm not sure that it meets the reasoning or the logic of what we created that mixed use district for. And yes, we're probably going to create new districts and new zoning mapping with the next. I know, I just feel like we had the cart before the horse in here. We've got literally no definitions of what we want this to become or how we're gonna make it become. I don't know how the planning commission was like, okay, like I'm a little bit confused.
Within the master plan, there has to be the definition.
Yes, so
So,
we're voting on something that doesn't even exist in a
so
master plan.
that's, I'm kind of wondering, as you're saying there, like, with the cart before the horse. Is there a particular reason that we don't do the master plan first and then do this? Is there a time frame? Is there, I'm asking, so that discussion would occur first. You know, and then we have that done, and then this would come second. That's what I'm hearing you say, Mike.
Yes,
For the clarification, is there some reason that we're doing this first and then?
Well, as of now, we have the purchase agreement to December 31st. So, we would have to extend our purchase agreement with Mr. Farber and, you know, move that along that way.
I know you can't, don't know what he would say, but knowing that we
Right,
might want to get that done first and then do this, because it would just
Right,
make sense.
we're just, I guess, when we originally set this out, we didn't realize that it wasn't gonna work. So then we extended it once. We're kind of concerned that if we keep extending the purchase agreement, at some point, he's gonna be like, you know what, maybe you're just not serious. And, you know, I mean, obviously, it's not all on us, but, you know, at some point, we're just afraid he's just gonna be like, no. But
I don't know the man obviously very well, but I know that he's seems like a very good guy,
yes,
if you will, and I would.
I don't know him that well either,
If he,
but
just a little bit that I worked with him, that I think that he knew that you were trying to go through the process appropriately so that there aren't any glitches
right,
in the end. And if he knew that, okay, council needs to do this first and then this, can you extend this another 2 months? I would think that knowing that we'd be doing it properly, he would be in favor of that. So
Yeah,
that things would go
well,
well for
and
you.
also, Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we originally set all this up, the plan was that the master plan was gonna be approved in the last council meeting.
Yeah.
So see, so that's.
So it got lapsed and then
Build
now
it
we're
up,
here.
buddy. Yeah.
So-
The master plan was scheduled to be adopted in March of this year.
Mhm.
And
But-
for reasons outside of staff or the applicant, so, and
Right,
that's what I was gonna say too, is the reason it's coming. And that's why I did say it's weird timing,
it is.
but it's because we have had some delays and we wanted to try to work with the applicants so that we aren't completely just saying like, sorry, but you gotta wait until all of this other stuff, because we are so close. And
It's not that I'm not for this either.
Right.
I truly am, but I think something that we are trying to learn on as trustees of the village is sometimes we do get the cart before the horse and we've done that. And we're trying to learn from those mistakes.
Right,
And I think that just for the, in my opinion, for keeping things, that we wanna do them properly. And I know we wanna pride ourselves on doing things in this proper sequence, that I would prefer to wait till we had the ordinance okay, and then revisit this. And I only say that just because, again, I wanna learn from our mistakes. I really think that is important for our board to do. And I would feel I'd be very surprised if Mr. Farber didn't roll
right.
with you on that, but I understand where you're coming from. I totally get it, because we were supposed to have this done prior to.
Right, and that was one of our other concerns too with talking to Danielle when she said, you know, this has been working on for 3 years. So like,
Yeah.
if we keep waiting, at some point, you know,
Right.
it's not gonna work for us
No,
anymore.
get
So,
Totally understand.
yeah,
It's, I hear you. Truly. That's kind of where I'm feeling on that, James.
Yeah, no, I hear that, but at the same time, we have someone looking to make an investment in our village. So if an application doesn't get approved tonight, what's the timeline we're looking at to finalize a master plan?
The master plan has been approved by the planning commission. Laura with McKenna is making those 3 adjustments, most of which are minor, and she'll be sending that to me. I'm planning to bring that to council January 8th for approval.
And when we see that in January 8th, those questions as regarding the barriers and et cetera, those things that Mike is asking about, those will be addressed in that document, correct?
No,
those are zoning ordinances.
the master plan identifies what the recommended amendments are, but it just, it's very vague. So this like the specific amendments will have to be drafted by staff. So it says create an additional mixed use zone. It doesn't elaborate what that is, it just, so I believe it
So
generally
that's not gonna
says.
give us the definition
It
yet.
won't, and much to her concern, the current mixed use will not require those sort of land buffers and the other things to protect her abutting property. It's literally in the middle of the village, come and go, where things change, residential, commercial, et cetera, but all in the same sort of house style or commercial building or whatever. It doesn't protect her abutting property at all.
What she's asking for is like private public land use.
I don't know, I just know that that's some of the basic, those are the ones we have for our other parks, so I figured that should translate to this park as well, if it's gonna be used 3 seasons out of the year by public, and, you know, by all these people, I figure it should be adopted the same ordinances as far as sound and, you know.
So I have an ordinance amendment drafted, it's been sent to legal, that identifies that any open air business for like recreational or in a mixed use zone would need to have lighting, shielding of some sort to protect the adjacent properties, and it would have to have the 5-foot barrier. And I pulled those from our existing ordinance and put them into the mixed use. So we are trying to incorporate that because of, and
What about the 100 feet?
I say Tori, but not just her, but whoever else has those, shares those concerns, and to protect the village.
Daniel, did you include the 100 feet between the field and the lot line and stuff?
I do not have that, no.
So that would be a big one. What is the wall? What is that? Is it, cause I know the pool has a berm for privacy,
No, that's not for privacy.
No.
That's just the excavation where, excavation where.
Well, it's kind of nice and farther, and I didn't know if that was.
It is nice though.
I mean, it
Yeah.
comes in handy. Oh, that looks kinda nice.
Yeah, it will actually hopefully be removed.
The 100 feet is not gonna be able to be met on this property.
So the ordinance amendment.
And that wouldn't be
And
needed
this-
if it was a commercial industrial.
And this can change, because this ordinance,
If there's industrial, though, they're gonna be, like, my husband works like, you know, in a company with a factory. It's the cleanest place you'll be. They're there, you know, 8 hours a day. They're quiet, they're inside. Like, I'm not seeing crowds of people all the time. I don't know. I feel like it's not apples to apples. You know what I'm saying, as far as the 100 feet? I don't, I was just, that doesn't bother me as much as far, I don't know if the rules for park versus industrial should be the same, I don't know. My perspective.
So those are from, those are from the public land use
I know.
that I pulled those.
Yeah.
And again, this is where, this can be changed. This is not written in stone. This is what's being proposed, but it says a wall or barrier of suitable material not less than 5 feet in height shall be constructed and maintained along those property lines abutting any residential district. All lighting shall be shielded from adjacent residential districts. And we, like any ordinance, we have the ability to, if we say there needs to be a buffer, that's potentially, that's going to impact them, but we can't write our ordinances just for Josh and Scott. And like, we have to write what makes sense for our community. But that's what's drafted is pulled right from our existing ordinance. It's not recreating anything.
And that's illegal right now.
Correct.
So I thought the public use, I heard it printed out, the public use, I thought there were 5 things. Okay, I didn't see any wall thing, if you look at the land use rezone. Here. I think 161103, that's. It talks about. Yeah. Those 5 things, that's what I was looking at, those 5 points.
I have a question about well, I guess that's buildings, never mind.
So Danielle. I'm trying to put all the pieces together because there obviously are more pieces than what I was realizing initially.
Yes.
All right, so we've got the rezoning. Then we have the ordinance amendment that's illegal. And then we had hoped that this was gonna take place in,
Well, then you have the master plan.
right, the master plan. And then we're talking about the commitment that you guys have made to Farber. So there's a lot of moving pieces going on.
Yes.
Okay.
And as well as utilities, and that's a huge one, because I think that lift station is maxed out there. And that, again, you bring in 200 cars, you have 4 ball fields worth of people, you have to have restrooms, you have to have facilities. We've only got a 2-inch water line that goes out there. There's no way to put a hydrant. There's no way to have enough, quote, sewer intake at that lift station at the corner of Sugar and Gibson as well. So again, whose investment does that fall back on? Is it the private individual to bring that up to code, or is it up to the village to bring that up to work again?
So
There's a lot of.
as of now,
There's a
for
lot of-
our immediate plans, we planned on either renting one of them restroom trailers or purchasing one, because even when we get the ball field in, we don't plan on putting a building up, even a press box at this time. Like right now, you know, I can't even give you a timeline, but our main priority is to get the fields in, get it usable, start recouping some of our money. You know, so we had already planned on, you know, restroom trailer or some of that sort, not even necessarily needing water besides for irrigation. And that was something else we were gonna, you know, I don't know what the rules are here about putting in a well just for irrigation or something on that property. You know, that's stuff that we had to look into yet. But we haven't wanted to invest too much money into all that research, because if it ain't gonna go, you know, we don't have that much disposable income. So.
But you understand what it would take to do that properly, say
Yes,
money weren't an issue, we would want the big facility out there and places for people to stay or whatever.
Right.
And park and utilize in lockers or restrooms or whatever, but again, we just don't have the infrastructure to even handle it right now.
Right,
And that.
yeah, Brent brought that to my attention too, so we knew that at some point that's gonna have to
I
be
think, I don't
addressed.
even think we could put a house on that lift station, from what I read.
Well, what would happen if someone wanted to develop it for commercial industrial uses? What then?
Yeah.
Private, either the village has to pony up and pay for that infrastructure improvement, or the private, builder does, the developer does.
Yeah.
A lot of, anymore, the developers unfortunately have to pay for it, because municipalities don't have any money to do.
Yep.
What do you think? I'm just curious,
Well,
what do you, let me hear your thoughts and Eric's thoughts and your thoughts. What do you guys think this is?
it's an interesting project. I like the concept.
Absolutely.
I like the rezoning away from industrial, commercial, near the pool. As far as setbacks go, I don't think that can be accomplished here, but even if it was developed residentially, they're gonna plot out as many spaces as possible, so you're not even gonna get 100 feet in a backyard to the back of the house.
That's not required district.
Right.
There's not gonna be so many people.
Um,
10-foot setback on the rear under mixed use.
yeah, and you're also
Very similar
talking,
to a residential,
Right.
because that's what it was built.
yeah, you're talking outfields. So,
When you said something about the potential to purchase more property, or somebody had mentioned that, do we know what land that was when you guys were at the planning commission level? Or somebody had reached, you know.
Oh, somebody, the house across the road, the guy, he had said, my house up first, I'll sell you my house to you. Scott and I looked, it's like an acre.
Okay, so it's not like that,
No.
not that back of
No.
property.
But the house right across the road, he would sell to us.
It's pushed it out of town. Okay, and that's available.
John, you know what soils out there?
And there,
Not totally, but I do know there's some cement and I see up by the trees.
Back there in that south line, coming a little bit north, there were lime hills there for the factory. And when the farmers bought it, all they did was bulldozer, they bulldozed it down. You might have 2 foot of lime on top of your soil. That's a cost there too.
Yeah.
To get that lime out of there and put topsoil in. Didn't know if you knew that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
They own the property immediately to the west.
what's your intention of rezoning the pool, public land?
Yes, that was kind of my thought process
Oh, we
because
have
it,
to-
yes, because it is owned by the village. So public land use doesn't permit really anything, private. So it permits outdoor public recreational uses, natural open space, developed open space, educational services, for schools. But yes, that's what government offices and courts, municipal airports. Essential service buildings. So that's why I was thinking, because it's owned by the village and I didn't foresee us anytime in the near future selling or doing anything different with that.
What are your thoughts on this, Danielle, as far as the rezoning first, the ordinance amendment, the word is with legal? And I mean, you've been a part of all this. I mean, your recommended motion is to go forward.
That's the planning commission's recommended motion. So anytime something zoning comes, staff presents all the facts and all the information. We're not supposed to make a recommendation, so that's why that motion's in there. That being said, I do understand where council is coming from. I do think that there's a lot of moving pieces. It's not completely unusual, just because it's hard for not just Blissfield, but municipalities to keep up on zoning. We've been going through the master plan for a long time. We know we need a lot of ordinance amendments. So I do think that we need to do what's best for the village, but we also, I think, need to work with people to encourage development and growth and some potential opportunities here. You know, it's not my business plan, I don't know, but I can tell you from zoning and staff side, it does make more sense to have something like this next to our pool than it does industrial. I do agree there needs to be some water issues and those were identified within the staff report, which was shared with the applicants. They would need to identify, it's their responsibility to tell us if that lift station can hold the sewer. And those are things, zoning is hard because they can't just come in without spending a ton of money upfront and investment on something that potentially you guys say this isn't gonna work out. So it's very, there's a lot of steps and it does take time, and so. I
Are
don't
you
know.
concerned regarding the status of the master plan? I mean, I know it's coming, but are you concerned that that's not done first and the amendments not through legal yet? That we're not going through?
If we were just starting the master plan, I would be concerned. But because the planning commission has worked on this and staff has worked on it for so long and they've reviewed it and looked through it, I don't have concerns.
And then as far as the legal aspect is, you don't have any concerns with where that's going either?
So you guys have,
I mean, I know we
have
have
the
the-
ability
Right.
to make whatever comes to you guys, if you're like, you know what, we want this added, you can make those changes at any point. And the applicants, I mean, they're gonna have to understand, like, if they can't comply with the ordinance, their only other option is a variance. But yeah, you guys said that, I don't know.
But I guess I like your perspective. You've done this.
Yeah.
You had the feel for it. Just like to know where your gut level's like, I don't think this is an issue, so.
I think that there are things to work through that are completely manageable, and I think that all parties could come to an agreement that would be satisfactory, that would be best for the village without negatively impacting any adjacent properties, moving forward a project that I think could be beneficial for the village. I think, you know, potentially if this could be a group of people that come eat at our restaurants, that come walk downtown. And it's not just people coming to our events, and not that those are not important, they are. But I do think that there is opportunity here for the village to potentially improve and use this as a partnership, and at the same time meet some of our goals already outlined within the master plan to improve our ordinances. And I mean, you guys know I've been working on them. I think I'm up to, I want to say 11 drafted ordinances that are going to be coming to you guys. So
Okay.
overall, do I think it could be cleaner? Yes. But we don't live in a perfect world, and things rarely work out timing wise, so.
The couple other facilities that Tori mentioned of Sylvania, those are a public park which conform to their zoning ordinances regarding a public park, with the setbacks that are required for that. Same thing at Heritage Park, that's owned by the city of Adrian or Adrian Township. My concern would be that if we move forward with rezoning this into mixed use, we don't have all the ordinances drawn up to provide for anything other than what's already currently in our ordinances, correct? So if we make an amendment to those ordinances, we now open up ourselves with other mixed use areas to conform to that same thing.
Yes.
That's my concern.
Yeah, to me, it's a misinterpretation of the mixed use.
Whereas when it's a public entity like our Ellis Park or some of the other parks here in town, there are buffer zones that are already established for the public use of those parks.
Well, there's backyards.
I mean, I'd love to see this succeed, and I think it would be successful, and it would definitely bring people into the village. If it didn't succeed, we've already changed that mix to mixed use, and for some reason, if it didn't succeed and someone else was to purchase that property, they could bulldoze what's there and put in a go-kart track. And that would impact much more to a degree of other people. Or another facility that might not be as quiet as a ball field. That's just some of the things that I come across my mind, and I only use the go-kart track because I know what they're like, they're kind of loud. We just have to be, I think we have to be careful and mindful that if we change the mixed use zoning in the ordinances, that opens up all the other mixed use areas in the village to the same parameters.
Correct. If you agree with that. It still has to be a permitted use or a special use in which they would have to come before planning and council for approval. So like a go-kart track's not a permitted or a special use.
I would much rather see a special land use variance or whatever for the property, again,
Versus for mixed use.
versus a mixed use. I think that's not the right use for that zoning. The zoning as a central business district / residential. I guess newly created zone.
So the only
It's only 10 years old.
special use permits that can be applied for under industrial are adult entertainment facility, wind energy systems, and solar panels.
Which is again, the strictness of how our ordinances read. I mean, it literally reads so obsolete, like a dance hall is allowed in C3 or something. Like, again, yes, we're trying to update this old stuff, but yeah, they're way too strict on what is allowed versus the sort of vagueness of saying this fits within the realm of what many other municipalities are doing with their zoning. They don't literally list a barber shop can be here, you know, a taxidermy shop or whatever. It's just, which is what ours do. And it's just a stupid thing, like a dance hall. How many people open a dance hall? You know, they have to look at our ordinances to go to dance hall.
So one of the other things so when we looked into financing for this project, when you go to a lender, Greenstone, TLC, I don't remember who else Scott checked with, but I know those are the two we were mainly working with. If it's not zoned mixed use or residential, we pretty much can't do it. You can't, anything over mixed use or residential, anyone will only lend on it for 5 years.
So that's why we're going for mixed use.
Yes.
Commercial banking is a 5-year
Yeah.
rate
Oh my
adjustment.
God, that's another little factor.
So it's like, I mean,
Oh my God.
when you look into, you know, people like us trying to just make something work, you know, if you're not a corporation and you can't come in and pay cash for it, it ain't gonna happen. So, I mean, that's something else that, one of the other reasons that's why we worked with Danielle on which would be the best way to go about this, looking for a rezone, because we only have two ways to make that work for us. So,
If the vote is yes tonight, this allows interested parties to pursue purchase. But it still allows us to require a permitting process. Right, we still have the capabilities to set ordinances and have those adhered to and also approve permits. So what we're really doing tonight is
Not necessarily look at our site plan review.
What happens?
A mixed use doesn't have to even go through planning for a site plan review, correct?
So
I mean,
because it's under the ordinance, and that's another thing that's actually site plan review and an ordinance, it is recorded
for a mixed
in
use.
under the revision, yeah.
Okay, but not now, but not current, not existing.
But they can't build it currently without the amendment. So you can approve the rezone, and then if the amendment doesn't happen, it's not permitted.
That amendment comes back to council eventually, correct?
Yes, it goes through planning because it's zoning and then comes to council for, yes, council has final approval on all ordinances.
I mean, again, we don't even have, you know, quotes, but the financial capacity to have a in-house, you know, engineer or something like that, but, or, you know, maybe that's something that Maddie would go through more of. But we barely even require any site plan reviews unless it's some sort of large industrial. I mean, we wouldn't even site plan review, we were talking about the Dollar General, right? And we didn't even have a site plan review on that. So again, yeah, we're trying to fix the ordinance, but we've got the cart way before the horse here. Again, it's setting this up for failure. Again, this is nothing against them or their proposal, but we're not ready for it to make that a mixed use district without what we defined the mixed use as. And again, I'm going back to what we created that for. I was on council at that time. It's that central business district where it's an influx of residential and small commercial properties that kind of change as use is needed. It doesn't correlate with what we used or what the definition of mixed use is.
If we have the master plan and legals, feedback by the 8th, would that be good for us to just wait till then?
I can't present an ordinance to you because it requires 15 days notice for the planning commission because it's a zoning ordinance and state law requires planning commission review any zoning amendment and then a 15-day publication for council. The master plan is scheduled to come the 8th.
Changes of Florida gonna have regarding that master plan? I mean, that's
It's
not a lot of time to.
approved by the planning commission.
With those 3 amendments.
Correct. And one of them was a title, one of them, the sentence was cut off, and the other one was the map that was incorrect.
Can we talk about, okay, like. This is for my simplest little mind, like, okay, option 1, no. That would be one option, okay, one option is we say no to this. The second option is we say yes. If we say yes, then we have all these other moving parts. And then the moving parts would be the, what's that plan called again, the master plan? And then we've got the legal. You guys have a farmer going on. That'd be a problem if we say no, obviously. And then what else? And then we've got,
You could table it and ask for it to be brought back at a later date. I'd have to double check, I think it's maximum of 45 days for any zoning application. If it exceeds that, it goes back to planning commission and then comes back to you guys again. So it kind of resets that public comment period.
and so with Tim asking that question with the legal, that's gonna be down the road a little bit, the master plan January, but the other portion wouldn't be until February. The actual legal, the ordinance amendment, once it has to go through legal and then through zoning and then us, correct?
Yeah, and the biggest challenge, not that it's a challenge, but we have to have those required public notice.
That's what I'm looking for, yeah, from the legal portion of it, okay.
So we have to look out and say, okay, this is the meeting, and then go back, when can we publish that in the advance? And typically it ends, because it advances on Wednesdays, it usually ends up being a little bit over the 15 days. Because if we go a week later, it's under the 15.
So I know this is putting a cart before the horse, but if you do say yes, it does give us a target. So
What do you mean by target?
well, we're saying, if we're saying yes to this, everything builds towards it. That means we approve the amendments, we approve master plan, we approve, everything is geared towards this. As far as mixed use definition, I don't know what definition this falls under, if it doesn't fall under mixed use as far as zoning is concerned. And based upon the criteria to get funding, mixed use or residential, I mean, flip a coin, pick one.
Well, it does fit under mixed use, and what I think Mike is saying is that when they set that up, that wasn't the intention, but if you read the definition for it, it does fit within that.
Okay.
Also, one family detached dwellings, publicly owned and operated museums, libraries. Talks about schools, talks about accessory uses for schools, talks about family, childcare, home occupation. Again, it's very strict and very limited. I'm not seeing ball fields, I'm not seeing private public partnerships, I'm not seeing any of this sort of thing in any mixed use district.
But can we add recreation, yeah,
Correct.
and that's the part you continue to say, Danielle, we can change that.
But then again, if you change it to that,
Then you have to.
then you reverse
then
it back to the central location, the central district of where it currently is and where it's sort of created to be limited to express. You know, our ball fields allowed, you know, 100 blocks north Quick
Right.
Street.
Yeah, but that would be or. Each of those would be.
Well, it's the same, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, Cedar
Okay.
Point just built their private thing, like, what are they, you know, how does their zoning work? Again, it's a tough situation because it's not a public, you know, park, it's not ball fields that we maintain or own or things like that. This is a quote, private recreational park facility. So again, we're not reinventing anything here. We should do some research and see, you know, what are the stipulations, what are the setbacks, what are, you know, those Pace Center have, what do these other properties have?
Pace Center, right up to neighborhoods, right up to their backyards.
I think you gotta be careful when a no goes too. Because if they don't do it and Pat gets a buyer, light industrial, you can have a plant in there right next to your pool.
That's it, and we,
And if
this
you don't think
aligns
he'll
with the
sell
pool.
it, he would sell
This aligns with what we have.
it. I guarantee you, he would sell it.
I think there's too many positives, not, that's just me, I think everything else can be worked through. Definitions, amendments, they can be worked through. I think this is a win-win for the village. Setbacks and shielding and stuff, I think we can come to an amicable resolution with trees and whatnot and lighting is pretty high advanced right now, so it's pretty easy to shield that stuff. So.
And I mean, honestly, lighting it's not even, you know, it's not even on our minds, but I mean,
Yeah.
you think of future, but if you know, it's not, you look up any ball field that shows lighting, all the lighting, it shines down. It's a ball field, you can't really have it shine out because no one can feel the ball, but it's shining at you, you know what I mean? So the majority of your lighting on a ball field is on the outfield and on the sides of the ball field shining straight down. If you look at aerial photos, 50 foot out from the ball field, it's black. You know, it's not gonna, let's say 10 years down the road, we put lighting in, it's not gonna be any more hideous than the ethnic plant of staring at lights, you know. I mean, it's not gonna shine at anybody's houses or anything like that. So, you know, to bring lighting into it, I'm not saying it's a mute point, but you know, I mean, we're not gonna try to light up 15 acres with lights. It's just, that's not feasible and it doesn't do any good for your baseball players. When it comes to setbacks and stuff, you know, we honestly, if it comes down to it and we gotta put a net along there for the balls, we'll put a net along there. You know, I mean, we're not against working with somebody. As in trying to keep 100 foot between there. If that's a deal breaker, that's gonna be a deal breaker. I mean, it just ain't gonna work for our plan. But I mean, it's not like, on the other hand, it's not like we're trying to put a building there. The property's already fenced with that property's fence, so to put a setback on that fence is kind of silly, you know? But I mean, to me, that's all stuff that comes in the next phase of the ordinance amendment and the uses and all of that stuff. You know, right now, our biggest thing is to get the zoning changed so we can purchase the property. And then, you know, to move on to the next steps. You know, honestly, if we get the property bought and, you know, then it works down and we don't get to it, you know, then we go to plan B, but at least we have the property bought. Whereas now, the longer we go, plan B might never happen. So that's where we're at on, you know, the immediate request.
I'm still confused, Danielle's words here, you're saying that this is allowed in mixed use, like, what is your definition, where are you thinking?
It's not it's in the amendment.
That we would have to create.
Correct. So you approve this rezone, we cannot issue them permits right now unless the amendment goes through.
And I don't think we can make an amendment until the master plan is settled.
Yes.
And whatever amendment.
Because that master plan
Yes, you're right.
dictates all of your
Right.
zoning ordinances.
And whatever amendment we make to the mixed use has to be applicable to all mixed use.
Correct. Or we create a new mixed use zone, not mixed use one, but maybe a mixed use two or something different is used, just for example. Again, I don't want those to correlate to the same mixed use because that was not the intent of the mixed use. Again, this talking of home occupation and once, I'm being a dead horse here, but those small buildings that continue to change hands or are utilized for something different from time to time. That's literally why they're along that 223 corridor, because
And down South
say
Lane.
something gets torn down and the business gets built there. It's
Change
a lot of change excuse.
And I'm pretty like all those are all landlocked. You couldn't do them all. It's quite long. So it's sort of, and that's not, I don't think that's somewhere someone's looking to. All right, I think we should take action though. Does anybody want to call a motion and allow the vote?
Make a motion to move to approve the PZ 23-11-2 rezone application to rezone the identified property from industrial to mixed use.
Just remember, if you support it, you don't have to vote. And we can still have discussion.
I'll support.
Doesn't sound like we're done with discussion. There is a lot of moving parts, but I think they can be worked through. I think this benefits the community. I think it aligns with the pool. I think Mike's point is correct. The mixed use probably has to have a subsection or a special mixed use or zone 1, zone 2. But again, that could be accomplished.
And that's what you're saying, Danielle, I like that idea of the, mixed use A or mixed use B or whatever, 1, 2, something like that.
I don't think that should be our hang up though tonight.
But if we do decide to develop a mixed use 1 and 2. That will take some time too, because that has to go all the way back to the zoning board or the planning commission.
And the master plan.
Right,
Well, then we can
well,
go ahead.
that's not a simple,
It's not a slam dunk.
it's not a
Gotcha.
simple change either.
But then we could go ahead and then, work with the amendment, not instead of having a 1, 2, we could tweak the amendment, which wouldn't be as drastic as a 1, 2.
Right.
See what I'm, is that accurate when I say that?
Correct, but that amendment could potential, well, again, it will correlate with every single
Mixed
property
use.
in that zone.
Mhm.
That's my fear, that's my concern. That dictates setbacks, that dictates land buffers, that dictates a lot of things. You're talking apples to oranges right here.
But you're also talking, what, 6 to 8 months before you get started on construction? 4 to 6 months?
Yeah, I would say less than 6.
Here's an example. So there's a field out behind the Legion, which falls into the mixed use district. What's to say somebody doesn't say, hey, we're gonna put 2 ball fields in there.
Or hey, I'll buy it with the promise of whatever, and in
Right.
2 years you'll see a casino built there, cause cha-ching.
It's mixed use.
Do we have an ordinance allowing casinos?
No, we didn't have a call.
No, we're just coming up for a minute.
Okay, but we still have months to work with. So we do have a time frame that is manageable for all parties involved.
But if he's looking at a 6-month bill and we end up changing the ordinance in the mixed use, that process could take another year or 2.
How so?
Because it has to go through the planning commission and then all the way back through council in order to allow for the mixed use.
Yeah, that's not gonna take a year.
I bet it will.
How long is it taking for the master plan?
I'm just putting that out. And then by then,
We can call a special meeting.
now he's
or-
got a piece of property, but now he's got a piece of property that he can't do anything with until that's taken care of. So this is not a slam dunk to get it through here. This is the first step of potentially 4 or 5 more that are just as big, if
Yep.
not bigger.
And they also
For
run the
him and
risk,
for
they
us.
also run the risk if we do a site plan review of saying, no, this doesn't conform, this is gonna affect other property owners, this isn't gonna work. You don't have enough space for parking, and again, my concern is 15 acres to do that whole. To do it right, to me, is very limited. I'd much rather see a site plan. Before they move forward too far, get too invested into it.
Yeah, but they're not gonna invest in a site plan unless they can acquire the property.
And I
I
would
think we're
be-
setting ourselves up.
And I don't think we should make business decisions for people.
No, I agree with that, we shouldn't, but if I'm sitting out there in his shoes and this discussion is going on, and it is.
Yeah.
I would be concerned that even if I did move forward with the property, that this may tie up their money for say 9 to 12 months before they could get started, which means they wouldn't be able to get started until they have a workable, playable surface out there till 2026.
I understand that concern, but that's not a concern of this board. That's a concern of the private investor.
Yes, it is, but
But you,
that deal may fall through for them, and now we've changed it to mixed use 1 and 2. Somebody else decides to come in and we can't stop that. That's the other thing that comes up. In my mind.
but or to Lawrence's point, you end up with light industrial, you end up there with a plant,
there,
noise pollution, we have no ordinance against that, light pollution.
guys taking breaks out there, watching people swim.
Yeah, so now it's zoned for that.
There are
Right,
ordinances-
so
So you can stop
There is nothing to stop
them.
it.
It's all light industrial. They put any kind of plan.
For fumes and for any, like electrical interferences and fumes and stuff. And there's like, they so far from the building, they have to test it, and if there's that much pollution, then it's not acceptable. There are certain.
Yeah, right, but there's also like, I mean, take a look at Euclid, they have 40 trucks a day in and out of there.
Yeah, I mean.
So, I mean, it's just trucks and air brakes and people and like on break and then there's, I mean, close to 100 people that work out there, so there's a trade-off. There's definitely.
I don't see a $50 million production facility going in off Sugar Street and things.
Well,
I'm not opposed to changing the use of the property from one zoning use to another zoning use. I'm just merely pointing out that if we change the zoning use to mixed use, their business venture aside, we change the ordinances to reflect that.
Correct.
Now we've changed it for the whole village. It has to go all the way back through zoning, all the way back through the planning commission before it comes back through here.
Right, when we don't even have our quote ordinances set in place.
We're on a master plan, yeah.
yeah, but that's what we're agreeing to tonight. Is a final target to allow this. That's what we're saying. We're saying that anything going forward has to have this. agreement.
All we're doing tonight though is agreeing to change the use from industrial to mixed use. That's all we're doing.
Well, essentially what we're doing is saying we're gonna potentially allow ball fields. What we're really doing.
No, we are
We're
really,
dictating how we're gonna proceed with.
the motion that was made is to
Yeah.
change it to mixed use. It doesn't say anything about making it a ball field or
Yeah, you're right, but that mixed use includes.
not yet.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't yet.
It is.
The amendment does.
Has the amendment been approved yet?
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is what we're ultimately deciding on. Are we approving the amendment to include the baseball fields? That's what essentially what
You're
we're doing.
starting at Z when we need to be at.
You're right, we are. We are starting at Z.
We
We're
are
starting
way
at the
ahead
top.
of ourselves.
We're starting at the target point. We're
But
saying.
we're not starting to approve a mixed use, including a ball field. The mixed use is only changing it from industrial to mixed use. The mixed use right now does not define, well, it does define. It's already in our ordinances as a mixed use. We are merely changing it to mixed use tonight. We will have to change it to a mixed use to include a different use that's not already permitted. in
Well, that's what the amendment includes.
But the amendment's not being voted on tonight.
Right, we're just chasing our tail here. But where do you wanna bite?
In the process, then it should follow it out, not in the reverse process.
I don't know, we've got someone here tonight that we can give an answer to, so.
And unfortunately, I don't think we're at the point where we can give them an appropriate answer.
Well,
I would vote.
we should at least vote on it so they know.
I'm not opposed to changing it to mixed use. That's where I'm at. But that still doesn't allow them to move forward very far.
But that's their.
And I'm not saying we need to cater to their needs at the expense of everybody else in the village potentially. I'm just saying we still have a long ways to go in this process.
Yeah, I agree.
Danielle, if, let's say they decided to approve the mixed use tonight. Would it be easier for everyone if it was a special use requested for that versus an ordinance amendment to allow the baseball fields? Cause then you're only
I didn't think so, because
you're voting to allow one specific use.
that's what I
And
thought. But
the properties that you're describing around town, none of them fit that usable clause. So maybe that would be a better approach to go about the second part of this is to, request a special use for baseball fields.
But the special use is already there, and what does it state that it can be?
That was industrial. That
Oh,
was,
that was special use.
yes, cause somebody had said to leave it industrial and special
Okay.
use. So it's still an ordinance amendment as a special use,
But I mean, it's not,
yes.
but you're not amending the whole mixed use.
You're not
ordinance. I mean,
permitting
you
it.
are, but you're more
That would get away from
specific.
the mixed use.
Yes,
For everybody having to do
you're
that.
not permitting it outright. You're saying that anytime somebody wanted to do that, they would have to go to planning commission and then council. And any special use by state law says that council and planning commission, council has final approval. You can place any reasonable conditions on the applicant, such as a barrier and that's why they do special uses, so that if it's a unique use that you can apply those conditional requirements to protect the adjacent property owners. So yes, but it is still an amendment to the ordinance. It's not a difficult amendment.
Because there is a list of special uses under mixed use.
Correct.
But that could be perhaps easier to attain versus the mixed use amendment.
6, 1/2 dozen of the other.
Okay,
Is everyone in favor of actually giving an answer though, in terms of a vote? We good with that?
no, I'm not yet.
Okay.
Daniel, tell me what you said the mixed use was. I put down your special use permit, then I crossed it off that we could not use that. What were you talking about with the strip club?
That was for industrial.
Okay.
So
That's what it was.
yeah, I apologize. So I don't remember.
That's
we
the
talked about
industrial
two things.
special use. permit.
Somebody said to leave the use, to leave the zone as is and have them apply for a special use. You can only apply for a special use if it's identified as a optional special use. If it's not listed, then it's just not permitted.
Then, the special use.
So uses are either permitted outright, which means they don't need approval, we're saying that zone allows it, or special use. Or anything not listed, it's not allowed in that zone.
But you can't list everything, no, potentially for future planning, what is gonna happen. Again, it's for a specific.
But that's
for a
why
special
case by
land
case
use.
special
It's gotta
use.
be more vague today, it can't
But
just say
zoning- Zoning is specific, so zoning is different than, so like criminally, the law tells you what you can't do. Zoning tells you what you can do, so you have to look at it different, so every community zoning. Across the board that's done correctly it does tell you specifically what is allowed and what's not. It's not meant to be vague, so if it's not listed anywhere, it's not allowed.
And that's normal.
Yes, that is how
That's how-
planning is intended, or zoning and planning is intended to be. And I think it gets confusing because like, we tell you you can't speed. And so people think that zoning tells you what you can't do, but that it is not.
So in 1950, when they created the C2 business district or whatever downtown, they said what's allowed in the C2 district, a internet cafe.
Yeah.
In 1950, when the internet didn't exist, is what I'm saying, again, you don't.
Or
know
it was
what happens in the
amended.
future. It makes absolutely no sense.
Well, obviously, there's been amendments since 1950 to that, to include internet cafe.
But our ordinances are way too vague
I get that.
to
But I also think that
Big
at this
thing.
point, well, there's gonna be future amendments to include things that we haven't thought of yet.
Exactly. But the fear is with it being mixed use in this, again, we're talking about an ordinance change that we don't even have in front of us. That to me is irresponsible.
It's bad public policy.
That's what I was kind of alluding to, getting,
It
that's something
is.
we're supposed to be learning from, and it's not that I don't agree with what you guys are doing, I'm saddened that this whole process is going like it is,
And see, it's hard for us to
I know.
request a zoning amendment. Because we don't own the property, so technically, nobody even has to hear our zoning amendment request. Because we're trying to amend something and we don't have any control over it.
The brutal honestly behind it, Josh, is that for mixed use, it doesn't correlate to what the intent of the mixed use zoning district is today.
Right.
100%.
Right,
Even if it was zone mixed use, which it is not currently.
right, we would have to ask for, that's why we're,
Right.
working with Danielle, I'm working with, what would be the best way to ask for an amendment to allow it to be used, because honestly, you don't have a zone period for anything public sports.
Right.
You can't even put if I wanted to put a baseball training facility in across there, I can't do it. Don't matter if I rent the building, I can't do it, because it don't matter what is zoned and
It's not listed.
it's not listed.
Proper use.
So no matter what we do to move forward with anything, it has to be amended. And we can't
Regardless.
ask to have something amended unless we own it. So it's like, this is where it's, there's so many moving parts and we get that, and we respect, the fact that, like Eric's looking out, like if we accept this and we go buy the property and then you guys are like, no, we don't wanna do it that way, well, then we gotta figure out a buyer to sell the property.
That's
We
one
get
of the things
that.
I was wondering, let's just say that we say, oh, the setbacks it is a deal breaker.
Yeah.
I mean, we say we want these setbacks, and you're gonna say, oh, we physically can't do it, now what do we do?
No.
And that's, yeah,
This is more than a one-step process. I think the first step tonight, at least in my head, is to rezone this from light industrial to mixed use. That's the first step. The next step might be to redefine or further define what mixed use is.
We already have it defined.
We have one mixed use
Exactly.
zone.
So we need another mixed use zone.
Exactly.
or a special use permit.
I don't think we can move forward with the rezoning tonight because the master plan has yet to be approved. Master plan serves as your basis for the local zoning ordinance. If that is not secured and in place, nothing else after that matters.
But weren't we told at the beginning of this that the master plan has already been approved, even though we haven't seen it yet?
But it hasn't been approved by council yet.
Okay, this motion is planning commission's recommendation.
To go from industrial to mixed.
Yeah. So, yep, they have.
I was not there last Tuesday night because I was ill. Had I been, I would have brought this question up.
I agree. I think it was a unfortunate lack of discussion or knowledge of what that mixed use zone is for.
In the process by which that should have been moved forward.
So what do you think is preferential, light industrial or mixed use for that piece of property?
Probably mixed use, but not even mixed use, I would say some sort of hybrid, yeah. Definitely not mixed use one as written in our ordinances. Correct.
Alright, so we can agree that light industrial is not its preferred use.
Okay.
Just
for clarification,
I
Daniel.
guess I have a question, and just because I'm sorry, I'm not really feeling good, and I'd like this to be over too, but no offense to you guys, I'm sorry, but so let's say the master plan is kind of the big thing that I keep hearing. So you guys can postpone or table this item to the January 8th meeting. If I don't think you can push it out much further than that because you're gonna hit your deadlines. if it's more than that, don't push it out, I think that's not beneficial to the applicants to not know what's happening or just to push it out, but if you're wanting the master plan adopted before, you could do that, and then I can put this back on the agenda for the 8th. Because the master plan, again, has been approved by planning commission. Master plan identifies to rezone this, and it does identify one of the recommended actions for future zoning, create a new mixed-use district. So I think that's what Mike was trying to say, is that you have the different. It says to create a new district that is 223 general commercial district, and it identifies that the mixed use district that we have now is intended to be that. So it's all of the things you guys are talking about, the master plan includes. That does not need to be changed. So again, I don't know, just throwing it out there as an option.
Alright, so let's say this,
I
I
don't
think,
think the planning commission knew what that mixed use designation or usage was about, unfortunately. That to me is a little scary.
but I think we should be able to clarify that January 8th.
I don't think anybody would have known that unless they were here, because the definition for it is the hybrid of residential, and it doesn't identify that it was intended to be along the 223 corridor. Where this recommendation is saying identify, say 223 general commercial district, and that would tell us then, okay, this is not intended to be on the outskirts of town, this is supposed to be along 223. So I think when that was created at the time, whoever was sitting on that board had an understanding of the intention, but if it's not spelled out in the future, we kind of lose that institutional knowledge, unfortunately. And thankfully, we have people like you who've been on council for a long time and have some of that, but that's kind of moving forward in our amendments. We need to be clear what the intention and purpose of that amendment is.
So we have a motion, it sounds like we're not gonna take action, is it okay to let that die without action?
So you have a motion, you're required to take a vote on it. You can have a second motion come before the council. So if the motion fails, that it doesn't mean it's dead. You can say, okay, you know what, we would like to bring this back, or if there's no additional motion, the application is denied and fails. So I guess a couple different options.
Say those options again.
Okay, so you already have a motion and a
Right.
second on the floor. You have to vote on it because
Okay.
the motion has been made and
You
seconded.
can withdraw.
Or withdraw, yes.
Alright,
Oh,
Or let's say that motion fails. Another motion can be made following it to postpone or to push it to the next meeting and can be voted on. If no motion is made and that this vote is taken and it fails, then the application fails.
okay, so would, Bill made the motion, would he be the one to ask for the withdrawal?
It would have to be the same first and second to withdraw the motion.
Would you be amicable to that resolution? Okay.
So I always state, I just make a motion to withdraw my previous motion for, what is it, PZ 23-11-02 rezone application.
and I would support it.
Okay, moved and supported, do we need a vote on that?
Yes.
Okay. Withdraw, all right, we'll make sure we're clear. Lisa, do you have that second motion?
Yes.
All right, we call vote please.
Could you read that for us, just so we're all clear?
He wants to withdraw the motion that was approving the PZ 3-11-02 rezoning application to rezone the identified property from an industrial to mixed use.
Go ahead.
I thought we just withdraw a motion and don't vote on it, but
I think I know withdraw, I think you have to vote.
you have to vote to withdraw, you can move to withdraw your own motion. If you're making two motions,
Yeah,
I don't believe that.
Let me grab my book, it's in my office.
same time you make a motion, I think you have to move it to a vote. Or like, I don't know. That's what the first one. You just put it on.
It's like your first one.
I think so. Share your rules, that.
So I need to look at, I think. Vote to rescind
That's after it's approved,
after it's approved.
is a rescind, yeah. Okay, so withdraw or modify a motion without taking a vote. So the vote to modify can be reconsidered. And vote by general consent when asking permission to withdraw. So it is general consent. So it doesn't have to be a roll call. You can say all in favor, all opposed, but it does need to be, there does need to be consent to withdraw it.
Okay, so for the withdrawal, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion withdrawn. Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion to table this until the January 8th meeting?
Does that give you the time you need, Danielle, to?
Yeah, by the time frame, I think a week is not gonna, I think Pat will extend a week.
Well, my
If
question,
not, I'll call. Yes.
we can all go. My question is, will we have the ordinance amendments by January 8th?
Yes.
We have those, the
That's
master plan,
We'll have the master plan for the ordinance amendment.
well, that's what we
That's cool.
need. We need that
That's-
also,
We're gonna have all that on the January 8th.
part of this come from legal.
Correct.
So I will not have an ordinance amendment.
The only thing we'll have is the master plan.
I will have the master plan.
Was that because legal won't have it prepared?
No,
No,
because it has.
it's because of the public notice
Oh, that's right.
requirements.
So the earliest would be the last meeting of January.
No,
No.
because it's zoning, so it's required to go to planning first.
The first.
Anything within 216 is required to go to them and then council.
Give me March.
Would they be allowed to have a special meeting for that?
Yeah, I mean, they would have to agree to hold a special meeting, we'd have to have a quorum,
From the zoning,
yes, from planning.
planning, thank you, these are.
Well, the question would we even pass a motion if we only had the master plan?
Correct, I agree,
That's
that
the
is a
question.
good question, because I don't think it does the applicants or us any favors if you guys postpone it and then on the 8th, just say no anyway. I think we need to. And I'm not saying you absolutely can't, but if your intention on the 8th is to say no, I don't think that's in anyone's best interest. That's more staff time, that's more time on the applicant. Not saying. Oh, no, but.
Well, on January 8th, the master plan includes the mixed use zone for that piece of property,
The recommendation for.
right? The recommendation for a second mixed use zone.
Correct. It's recommended action for create a new district, mixed use district. It also identifies that the current mixed use should be identified as 223 general commercial district. And then it also has the map for future land use.
And does it allows the same restrictions as the existing mixed use, correct? It's technically mixed use one in a different location. It's not a new mixed use,
It's recommending both, so
but that doesn't have its own ordinances and regulations stipulated within that, both mixed use too, correct?
Correct.
Setbacks and everything,
Correct, it
again,
does
we don't
not.
have that information in front of us.
yes, that would have to be, that's the ordinance amendment portion, piece of it. Because the master plan's just telling you generally, these are what you need to do.
It won't
and
state
we have
uses,
to-
it won't state,
So it's not gonna, it's not
Any of
gonna
those
be.
concerns that we have.
So
correct?
But the master plan was approved on the eighth, we still have all the ordinance changes to make. So it doesn't put them behind only by just a couple of weeks. Theoretically.
theoretically. Because the master plan already states that those things need to take place,
Correct?
but it doesn't mean that. That's still some, work / time that needs to take place.
I understand that cart before the horse theory, but this is almost like granting permission to buy the vacuum truck before we have a truck picked out. This is simply becoming more efficient. This is agreeing that we think the land should be changed to mixed use. This is.
Well, you really solidified my vote on that then, because I
Well,
totally
I mean,
disagree with that.
I know where you sat on that vote, but it really is, it's basically, it's almost approving the site plan at this point, and are you in agreement that this is a good use of that land? Is it good for the village? Danielle alluded to, bringing in, outside vendors and traffic flow to our businesses, gas stations, restaurants,
I
whatnot.
don't think
shopping.
anybody here is disputing all that.
No,
No one
and-
is.
No one is disputing.
no one, you're
But
right, no one is,
the market
but
is
we're creating barriers, I think
Well,
we
sometimes
can
those
work through
barriers
and our,
those barriers are there.
I get that, but
Sometimes
even
for
our
a reason.
administrator says that these barriers can be worked through.
You also gotta remember that that was designated I-1 for a reason too, and yeah, we built the darn pool there and everything else, but there's a lot of other factories, there's a lot of
Well,
other.
how did the pool get built there without it being changed? Like that's a huge question mark, we need to ask ourselves.
No, well, no.
At least at this point,
It's still village.
we're recommending the right steps, we're laying out the steps. We're just starting. Rather than starting at A, we're starting up the line at whatever.
But don't forget that that's surrounded by whatever, and I mean, you could see another large industrial manufacturing come in where the existing BMC is or where those surrounding properties are, and really. It was designed by that in the previous, layouts or the, design of the village to have that. You have to have obviously some industrial area. To flourish, to have jobs, to do the things that we've been crying about for years of not having jobs in this village, so. Like, I'm just, it's all big picture stuff, and I hate saying that, because I hate when my management says that, but it literally is. And again, it's not a bad idea, I like the idea,
Right.
it's just following the process and doing it the right way, and. We're just not ready for it, unfortunately, in my opinion.
I think we would be further down the road in January than where we are now, at least the master plan would be stating those things. The only thing I could think of is if they went ahead and we had some special meetings that could move things along, if we feel it's that important, why can't we press ahead and make that priority? And just say, okay, look, zoning committee, this is your. You know what I'm trying to say, hey, we feel this is a priority, let's get on this, let's get this ordinance done, let's get this thing rolling. It's not gonna happen within a month, but I know that's not what you wanna hear, I'm sorry.
Any movement forward is better
But
than, no.
if we could say as a group, hey, we've done this before with other ordinances that have said, we want this ordinance done. We want this on the front burner with the legal, And if we do that and have some special meetings, I don't know why we couldn't have something like this wrapped up in March-ish. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yep.
And that way it,
I agree with that.
I think we can push it because we do all believe in it. And if we believe in it, then let's push it along, but we need to do it step by step. And there'll be a lot of discussion, I'm sure, but that's okay.
Well, I'm not hearing any affirmative motions.
Danielle,
Should we then just defer this to January 8th as the next logical step, and then from there, try to set up a series of special meetings?
So,
Cause if we table, we have to act on it, right?
correct, yeah, so I mean, the other,
Just call for adjourn.
you know, once you go outside of your dates, then what we would need to do is work on the ordinances, and then I would work with them. After the ordinances are done to determine how we proceed and move forward, if it's, because it'll reset and have to go back to planning. If it's still a rezone, if it's a special use, whatever that process is.
Well, I think with this end goal in mind, every meeting should have
Yes.
this site plan in mind.
Yes. Can we
Right,
get,
so every step should be a forward step, is what I'm saying.
I agree, I'm just saying on this specific rezone application, you can't just extend it out.
Oh, okay.
Because of the specified time requirement, so I'm not saying it can't, like, if this doesn't go through tonight, that we won't continue to do those meetings and take those next steps forward. I'm just saying, depending how all that goes, it potentially, we're still looking at a rezone coming back to this board.
certainly,
It would just have to be at a later date, because you can't, if you're gonna table it or move it, it has to be revisited within that time frame, the 45 days.
Does the 45 days start at the time of application or the time of vote?
I need to double check
Cause if it's
that.
time of application, then if nothing's passed tonight, it won't get done. Cause it was made before November 15th. I think, or right around there. So 45 days is gonna be past your January 9th meeting. So,
I think they can extend it 45 days from the meeting.
Okay.
Is the, I gotta pull that.
Do you see you and Scott allowing us to go through the steps to help this happen?
yeah, I mean, we
Because we're for-
wanna make it happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, the longer it gets pushed out, the harder it's gonna be, but, you know.
I say we go through the steps as quick as possible, and we all work together and try to make it happen. So, hey,
well, that's kind of what I said, Jim. You're just agreeing with me.
I wanted to hear me say it.
Well, I beat you to it, brother. Sorry, but I did.
All right, so what action
I'm
needs to
good.
take place tonight, Danielle? Any action?
I've heard it.
Call for an extension? None?
No.
If we don't take action on this rezone and 45 days ends, it's
I
denied?
mean, I'm moving forward with the master plan and the amendments.
Well, I'm just asking about this rezone application, because if nothing happens, 45 days are up, it's denied, but then they just reapply.
Yeah, we would work with them to move forward, yes. Yeah, it would reset, yes.
Okay, so a new application would have to be made.
There's no penalty.
Just lastly, current landowner. Did he make a rezone application?
Yes. But you're gonna run into the same things you have right now, because the owners authorized them to apply for this rezone application. So only, a landowner can apply, or they can designate like an authorized agent or someone to act on the application on their behalf, so. Pat submitted a letter indicating that they could apply, even though he's
Right.
PDF Holdings is the legal owner. So it doesn't change anything who
Well, that's my
applies
food
for
for
it
thought.
at
You've
this
got an
point.
owner that wants to rezone. You've got investors that wanna rezone.
I don't
You've
think
got a board
anybody's-
that thinks it's a good idea.
I don't think anybody's denying that. I think it's the process that we have to work
Yeah.
through to get there.
It,
All right, the heated up process. Well, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting then.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:50.
or,
So it's 57 for the computer.
Seconds.
I got nothing.
No one, we're good? All right, Lisa?
Eric,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
James.
Yes, thank you everyone.